We're beginning with breaking news from the U.S. state of Kentucky. A grand jury in Louisville has indicted at least one officer involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor in March with wanton endangerment. Two others are going to face no charges. The city's mayor has declared a 72-hour curfew anticipating protests. Taylor, a black health worker, was killed at the age of 26 in a botched drug raid, though no drugs were found on the property. Her name's become a rallying cry in demonstrations against police brutality and racial injustice. Well, Kentucky's Attorney General Daniel Cameron speaking live about the case. Let's listen in.
Kentucky law states that a person is guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree when under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person. My office is prepared to prove these charges at trial. However, it's important to note that he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. During the last 6 months, we've all heard mention of possible charges that could be brought in this case. It's important to understand that all the charges that have been mentioned have specific meanings and ramifications. Criminal homicide encompasses the taking of a life by another. While there are 6 possible homicide charges under Kentucky law, these charges are not applicable to the facts before us because our investigation showed and the grand jury agreed that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in the return of deadly fire after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. Let me state that again. According to Kentucky law, the use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves. This justification bars us from pursuing criminal charges in Miss Breonna Taylor's death. The truth is now before us. The facts have been examined, and a grand jury comprised of our peers and fellow citizens has made a decision. Justice is not often easy. It does not fit the mold of public opinion, and it does not conform to shifting standards. It answers only to the facts and to the law. With this in mind, we must now ask ourselves, where do we go from here? Will we continue to prosecute the charges brought in this case as it now proceeds through the justice system and moves to trial? That is our responsibility. And this will be done while the FBI continues its investigation into potential violations of federal law. I know that not everyone will be satisfied with the charges we've reported today. My team set out to investigate the circumstances surrounding Ms. Taylor's death. We did it with a singular goal in mind, pursuing the truth. Kentuckians deserve no less.
You're listening to Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who's been giving details of the judgment by the grand jury in Louisville in the case of the killing of Breonna Taylor. Let's go to John Hendren, live in Louisville. John, the Attorney General there saying justice does not fit the mold of public opinion. The big question, of course, now is how people in Louisville are going to react to this.
That's right. You heard the Attorney General there say not everyone will be pleased. Well, I can tell you here in Louisville, they're not. In a word, we've heard people call those charges, that single charge against one officer, weak. We are here at the Breonna Taylor Memorial. This is a makeshift memorial. You can see a picture of her Black Lives Matter signs, flowers, and various tributes to her. These have been up here in a kind of permanent protest since this case began to get attention weeks after the death of Breonna Taylor. And the reason it's here is that right over there, that stone building is City Hall. That's where the mayor is. And then across from there is the courthouse. That is not the courthouse where these decisions were made today. And we have seen people here today who have been openly carrying arms. Now, that's not necessarily any kind of threat here. It's legally permissible, as we've seen at some of these other protest sites. But we do see people who have been carrying open weapons, but they have been among the peaceful protesters. the suggestion is that that is all in self-defense. But the people we've talked to out here have said that they are very unhappy with this decision. It's one charge against one officer. It is not a murder charge. You heard the Attorney General there say that federal officials are still pursuing charges, so there is the possibility for some kind of broader charges. But the idea of SWAT police breaking into the home of someone who was not the prime suspect and shooting her dead in her own home as she lay in bed has not sat well with people here in Louisville. And there is concern the police have locked down the whole central part of downtown because they are expecting there to be a reaction. There's a curfew for 3 days. That begins at 9 o'clock each evening. And I can tell you from the other cities that we've been to, Minneapolis, Kenosha, Wisconsin, that people are not likely to abide by those curfews. That's not how the protests have operated here in the U.S. People are upset. We'll see in the coming hours how they react and whether that single charge will offer any mitigation to the anger here in the streets.
Yeah, John, as you say, that's absolutely the key, because the family of Breonna Taylor was, I think just a week or so ago, was offered by the city a $12 million settlement, and the city also pledged that there were going to be reforms to the police. But from what you're saying, there's really a sense that whatever the city is currently offering, it does not sound as though it's going to be enough, and people are going to be expecting more from the city.
That's right. I talked to Breonna Taylor's mother weeks ago here in Louisville, and she said no amount of money could compensate her. But the fact that the city has to pay $12 million is a penalty for them. And now the concern is, how will there be reaction to the streets? If I'm going to ask my cameraman to turn around, because there are some of those armed people that we've been talking about in black in the distance. There are protests already scheduled as far away as Chicago, a 6-hour drive from here, for this very evening. So this is likely to be another one of those incidents. There was a George Floyd in Minneapolis, Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and we have had protests for Breonna Taylor here in Louisville for months. This is likely to kick off more national protests, and they won't just be here, they will likely be nationwide.
John, thank you very much indeed. Obviously, as things progress, we're going to be checking back in with you as time goes on. But for now, John Hendren in Louisville, thank you very much indeed.